Hansel and Gretel, Part 2. It was now the third morning since they had left their father's house. They started again, always looking for the way home, but instead, only going deeper into the forest. Unless help came soon, they would surely starve. At about noon, they saw a pretty snow-white bird sitting on a branch and singing so beautifully that they stopped to listen. Then the bird spread its wings and flew before them, as though to say, "Follow me." And so the children followed the bird until they came to a little house. The bird flew up and perched on the roof. And then the children saw that the walls of the house were made of gingerbread, and the roof was made of cake, and the windows were made of clear sugar candy. "Let's eat!" cried Hansel. Hansel reached up and broke off a piece of candy, while Gretel chewed on a piece of wall. Suddenly, they heard a thin, screechy woman's voice call out from inside the house.
"Nibble, nibble, like a mouse. Who is nibbling at my house?"
The children answered, "It's only the air, heaving a sigh. It's only the wind, passing by." The children were so hungry, they went on eating. But then the door opened, and a very old woman came out, leaning on a cane. Hansel and Gretel were so frightened that they dropped the food from their hands. But the old woman just nodded her head and said,
"My dear little children, what has brought you here? Come inside and stay with me. I'll take good care of you."
So she took them by the hand and led them into her little house. There they found a wonderful meal of hot pancakes with honey, nuts, apples, and cold milk. After that, the old woman showed them two little white beds, and Hansel and Gretel laid down and wondered if they were just dreaming. Now the old woman seemed kind, but in fact, she was a wicked witch. The story goes that she built her house just to trap little children, and once she had them, she would cook them and eat them. She could not see well, but she had an excellent sense of smell. Earlier in the day, she had sniffed Hansel and Gretel coming near. The next morning, before the children were awake, the witch got up and looked at their rosy cheeks.
What a fine meal I'll have,"
she cackled. She got Hansel out of bed and put him in a cage. Then she went back and woke up Gretel and shouted,
"Get up, you lazy bones. Fetch water and cook something nice for your brother. Feed him well, for once he's nice and fat, I will eat him."
Gretel screamed and cried, but it was no use. She had to do what the wicked witch said. Day after day, she cooked pots full of rich food for Hansel, while she herself ate nothing but crumbs. Every morning, the wicked witch would creep to the cage and say,
"Hansel, stick out your finger so I can tell if you're plump enough to cook."
But clever Hansel held out a little bone that Gretel had given him, and the old woman, who could not see very well, couldn't tell that it wasn't Hansel's finger. She wondered why he wasn't getting any plumper. When 4 weeks passed, and Hansel seemed as thin as ever, the witch grew impatient.
"Hurry up and get a pot of water,"
she snarled.
"Be he fat or thin, I'm going to cook him and eat him."
As she filled the kettle with water and lit the fire, tears ran down Gretel's cheeks.
"First, we will bake,"
said the old woman.
"I've heated the oven and the dough is ready."
Then she pushed Gretel toward the oven, where the flames were burning brightly.
"Stick your head in,"
the witch said to Gretel.
"And tell me if it's hot enough for us to bake the bread."
But Gretel knew what the witch had in mind. She knew that the witch meant to shut her in the oven, bake her, and eat her. So Gretel said, "I don't know how to do it. Where do I look? Could you show me how?"
"You silly child,"
cried the old woman.
"There's a big opening, don't you see? Why, I could fit in myself."
And she stuck her head in the oven. Then Gretel rushed up and with all her might pushed the witch into the oven. She shut the iron door and locked it tight. Gretel ran right to Hansel and let him out of the cage. "Come, Hansel, we are free!" she cried.
"The old witch is gone."
Hansel sprang out and hugged Gretel, and the children danced for joy, then ran out of the house. Then, because they had nothing to fear, they went back into the witch's house. There they found chests full of pearls and precious jewels. "These are better than pebbles," laughed Hansel, as he filled his pockets while Gretel filled her apron. "Now, away we go," said Hansel. Then he said quietly, "If only we can find our way out of the forest." When they had walked a few hours, they came to a wide lake. "There's no bridge and no stepping stones," said Hansel. "We can't get across." "And there's no boat either," said Gretel. "But look," she said, "here comes a duck. I will ask it for help." So she called out, "Duck, duck, here we stand, Hansel and Gretel on the land. Stepping stones and a bridge we lack. Carry us over on your nice soft back." And lo and behold, the duck came over. Hansel got on her back and told Gretel to sit behind him. When they were on the other side of the lake, they walked on for a little while and soon found a path. The forest began to look more and more familiar. At last, in the distance, they saw their father's house. They began to run as fast as they could. They burst through the doors and cried out, "Father, we're home!" Then threw themselves into his arms. Ever since he had left the children in the forest, the man had been worried sick. As for his mean wife, he told the children she was gone. Now, he hugged his children as though he would never let them go. As he squeezed Gretel to him, the pearls and jewels fell from Gretel's apron. Then Hansel reached into his pockets and pulled out handful after handful of treasure. They were together again. Their troubles were over, and they lived in perfect happiness for a long, long time.